The War Council chamber of the Zeflon hegemony buzzed with excitement. Supreme Commander Varkoth stood before the holographic display, his 6 arms gesturing triumphantly at the debris field that had been a human colony ship just hours ago. 50,000 of them, he announced, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Gone in a single strike, the mammals barely managed to send a distress signal before their primitive vessel broke apart. The council members cheered. Fleet Admiral Sethrix leaned forward in her seat, her scales shimmering under the chamber lights. Have they responded yet? I expect they'll beg for mercy within the day. Varkoth pulled up human biological data on the main screen. Look at them, soft skin. No natural armor, no venom. They can only see a fraction of the light spectrum we can. Their reaction times are pathetically slow. They need 8 hours of sleep every cycle just to function. He paused for effect. They're weak, and they've just entered territory we've controlled for 3 generations. Intelligence Officer Krith, youngest of the council, raised a claw hesitantly. Supreme Commander, there is one thing. I've been studying human history from their public databases. They have an unusual past. Spare us, Varkoth interrupted. Every species thinks their history is special. The Trexians thought themselves mighty too until we conquered them. Humanity controls 12 systems. 12, we control 200. This will be the shortest war in hegemony history. A notification chimed. The human ambassador's face appeared on screen. He looked remarkably calm for someone whose people had just lost 50,000 lives. His voice was steady, measured. Supreme Commander Varkoth. I'm transmitting this message to inform you that the United Earth Federation is recalling all diplomatic personnel from Zeflon space immediately. You have destroyed a civilian vessel carrying colonists, including 6,000 children. The families of the dead have been notified. The human paused. His eyes were cold. You have made a grave error. Earth will respond. The transmission ended. Varkoth laughed. A grave error? We've given them a lesson in reality. What will they do, send us angry messages? The council joined in his laughter. Krith pulled up her datapad, scrolling through files rapidly. Commander, I really think you should see this. Human history shows continuous warfare for over 10,000 years. They have words in their language for hundreds of different types of combat. They even created rules for how to fight wars because they were too brutal to each other. Enough! Varkoth's voice echoed through the chamber. Fear-mongering helps no one. Yes, humans fight amongst themselves. So does every species before they unite. It means nothing. They're primitives who got lucky and found faster-than-light travel. Now they'll learn their place in the galactic order. Sethrix nodded in agreement. Our intelligence shows they have no standing military. They dissolved most of their military forces after achieving world government 200 years ago. They're pacifists now, soft. Exactly, Varkoth said. We'll blockade their nearest 3 systems. When they realize they're outmatched, they'll surrender. Then we'll absorb their territory and resources. The colonies they were trying to establish will become ours. It's already decided. The council began discussing how to divide the future human territories. Krith remained silent, staring at her datapad. She'd found something else in the human records. A term they used, total war. The description made her blood run cold. But no one was listening to her now. 3 days passed. The Zeflon hegemony positioned fleets at the edges of human space, preparing for what they assumed would be a quick surrender. Then the sensors started screaming. Commander, we're detecting massive fleet movements. A junior officer's voice cracked with stress. 40 human vessels just entered the terminus system. They came from nowhere. Our deep space sensors detected nothing. Varkoth rushed to the tactical display. 40 ships. They said they had no military. Where did these come from? Unknown, sir. But they're moving at speeds 30% faster than our best cruisers. They're arranging in an attack formation we've never seen before. They're not hailing us. They're not asking for negotiations. They're just coming. Sethrix pulled up the timeline. Wait, this is impossible. It's only been 72 hours since the incident. Their nearest major world is 8 days away at maximum speed. They couldn't have mobilized this quickly. They couldn't have reached us this fast. Krith spoke up, her voice quiet but firm. Unless they were already prepared. Unless they keep fleets ready at all times. Unless war is something they never stopped being ready for. The room fell silent as the human fleet closed in. A transmission came through. A human face appeared. This one wore a uniform. His expression was carved from stone. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't make demands. The United Earth Federation does not accept your unprovoked attack on civilian vessels. We do not accept the murder of our people. We do not negotiate with those who kill our children. This is not a warning. This is not a negotiation. This is justice. We're coming. The transmission ended. Battle stations. Varkoth shouted. All ships engage. Show these primitives the might of the hegemony. The Zeflon fleet moved to intercept. They outnumbered the humans 2-1. They had superior defensive shields and heavier armor. They'd fought and won dozens of conflicts across the centuries. They were about to learn what it meant to fight an apex predator. As the two fleets closed to firing range, Krith pulled up one final piece of human data, a quote from one of their ancient military leaders. The object of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other poor fool die for his. She finally understood. Humans didn't see war as politics. They didn't see it as territory disputes, they saw it as hunting. And they'd just been given permission to hunt. The first battle lasted 6 hours. The Zeflon hegemony technically won. They destroyed 18 human vessels and forced the others to withdraw. But in the command center, nobody was celebrating. Report casualties, Varkoth demanded. 32 ships destroyed, Commander. Another 15 too damaged to continue operations. The tactical officer's hands shook as he read the numbers. They didn't retreat until they'd crippled or destroyed every ship they targeted. Even when their vessels were breaking apart, they kept firing. Some deliberately rammed our cruisers when their weapons failed. Varkoth stared at the battlefield display. The debris field was enormous. Human ships had fought until they were nothing but floating wreckage. Even then, some had detonated their reactors to damage nearby Zeflon vessels. What kind of species does this? This is madness. Commander, we're receiving reports from the boarding parties that secured disabled human vessels. Sethrix looked pale. The humans? They didn't abandon ship. They kept fighting inside their own damaged hulls. They fought in rooms with no oxygen. They fought in zero gravity with broken bones. Our troops had to kill every single one of them. Not one surrendered. An intelligence officer rushed in with a data pad. Sir, we've translated more of their military doctrine. I think you need to see this. Varkoth grabbed the pad. His eyes widened as he read. These are their rules for war? The Geneva Conventions? Yes, sir. They're protocols that limit what humans can do to each other during conflicts. They banned certain weapons. They banned certain tactics. They created rules about treating prisoners, protecting civilians, limiting biological and chemical warfare. The officer swallowed hard. Sir, these rules exist because humans used all of these things on themselves. They were so brutal to each other that they had to create laws to stop themselves. And they're following these rules with us? Unknown, sir. But there's more. I've analyzed human biology deeper. They evolved as persistence hunters. On their world, they hunted by literally chasing prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They can't run fast, but they never stop running. They overheat slower than almost any other species. Their endurance is unnatural. Krith entered the command center carrying multiple data files. Commander, I've completed my analysis of human civilization. You need to hear this. Every generation of humans has experienced war. They have professional historians who study nothing but warfare. They have museums dedicated to weapons. They write songs about battles. Children play games that simulate combat. They've turned warfare into an art form, a science, and a cultural obsession. Varkoth waved dismissively. Cultural details don't matter. We hurt them. They'll withdraw now. Sir, long-range sensors detect another fleet. 60 ships this time. They'll arrive in 4 days. The sensor operator's voice was tight. And there's something else. We're detecting massive energy signatures from human industrial worlds. They're converting factories. Civilian production is dropping. Military production is increasing exponentially. How exponentially? If our projections are correct, they'll have tripled their naval capacity within 6 months. That's impossible. No economy can shift that fast without collapsing. Krith shook her head. Human economic history shows they've done it before. Multiple times. In one of their global wars, they built over 100,000 aircraft in a single year. They converted automobile factories into tank production facilities in weeks. Their entire civilization shifted to military production while maintaining their civilian population. They call it total war. A communication officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from our allies. The Mordain Collective wants to know if we need assistance. Tell them, Varkoth began. Sir, they're not offering help. They're asking if we've gone insane. They're asking why we attacked the humans. Several allied species are. They're withdrawing their ambassadors from our worlds. They say they won't be associated with what we've done. Varkoth's mandibles clicked in confusion. What? We're one of the most powerful empires in this sector. Why would our allies abandon us over a conflict with a minor species? I'm receiving historical data from the Mordane Diplomatic Database, Krith said, reading rapidly. Commander, this says the Mordane made contact with humanity 40 years ago. There was a minor territorial dispute. The Mordane military suggested a show of force. Their elders voted no. They chose negotiation instead, even though humans were weaker. According to these files, the elder said, "We do not provoke sleeping predators." She pulled up more data. The Vrexith encountered humans 30 years ago. A human exploration ship wandered into Vrexith space by accident. The Vrexith detained the crew for 2 weeks while verifying their story. When they released them, the humans thanked them for their hospitality. But the Vrexith internal reports note that during those 2 weeks, 7 human warships appeared at their border. Just waiting, the Vrexith chose to release the explorers unharmed. And the Altari Consortium? Sethrix asked. They're always aggressive with new species. Krith scrolled through files. The Altari encountered humans 15 years ago. There was a trade dispute. The Altari seized a human cargo vessel. The humans requested negotiation. The Altari agreed immediately and returned the vessel with compensation. Their internal memo says, "These beings smile, but their eyes calculate how to kill you. Recommend friendship over confrontation." The command center was silent. Every major species in the sector had already learned what the Zeflon hegemony was learning now. Varkoth's communication console lit up. Another transmission from Earth. A different human appeared. This one was older, with gray hair and eyes that looked tired. She wore a suit, not a uniform. "I am President Chen of the United Earth Federation. I'm recording this message so that it's part of the galactic record. Your attack killed 50,000 civilians, including 6,000 children. You did this without provocation, without warning, and without cause. The United Earth Federation does not want war. We do not seek conquest. We do not desire your territory. But you have forced us to respond." She paused. Her tired eyes grew hard. "Every human government has mobilized for war production. Every ship, every resource, every technological advancement we have will be dedicated to this conflict. We will fight until we achieve justice for our dead. We will not stop. We will not slow. We will not forgive. You killed our children. That is something humanity does not tolerate." The transmission ended. "Commander," the tactical officer said quietly, "the second human fleet has arrived. They're requesting permission to recover their dead from the battlefield." Denied. "It's a military zone." "Sir, they're not asking. They're informing us. They're sending recovery ships with heavy escort. They're saying they will recover their dead with or without our permission. They say they never leave their people behind." Through the viewports, Varkoth watched as human ships moved through the debris field. Zeflon vessels moved to intercept, but weapons control ordered them to hold fire. Nobody wanted to start another battle. Not yet. The humans collected every piece of debris large enough to possibly contain remains. They treated the destroyed ships like sacred ground. They worked with precision and purpose. And all around them, their warships waited ready. Krith watched the recovery operation with growing dread. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" An older officer, veteran of a dozen campaigns, nodded slowly. "I've fought many species. They all fight for territory, resources, or honor. They stop when the cost becomes too high." He pointed at the human ships. "But these beings? They're not fighting for territory. They're fighting because we killed their children. There's no cost too high for that. We haven't started a war. We've started an extermination, ours." 6 months into the war, the Zeflon hegemony began to understand the true meaning of terror. The human industrial response was beyond anything they'd imagined. Earth and its colonies had converted 40% of their entire economy to military production. Civilian factories that once built ground vehicles now produced tanks. Shipyards that constructed cargo haulers now assembled warships. Research facilities that developed medical technology now designed weapons. How are they sustaining this? Varkoth demanded, staring at intelligence reports. Their civilian economy should have collapsed by now. Their people should be rioting. Krith had stopped trying to warn them. Now she just delivered information. Human psychology differs from ours, Commander. They're pack-bonding creatures. When threatened, they unify. Their civilian populations are working longer hours voluntarily. They've implemented rationing systems they used in previous global wars. Their citizens are buying war bonds to fund the military. They want this. All of them. The tactical display showed the new reality. Humans now fielded 200 warships, not repurposed civilian vessels. Purpose-built warships designed with technology the Zephlon had never seen before. What is this? Sethrix pointed at a report. Humans are using kinetic weapons? Just accelerating rocks? Not rocks, asteroids. An engineering officer pulled up the data. They're mining asteroids in their own systems, installing guidance systems and accelerating them to near light speed. Then they release them toward our worlds. No propulsion signature, no energy weapon to detect. Just mass traveling at relativistic speeds. We can't stop them. Our shields are designed for energy weapons, not kinetic impactors. That's barbaric. That's efficient, Krith corrected. They're weaponizing their entire star system. They've turned mining operations into artillery, and it costs them almost nothing compared to traditional weapons. A communications officer looked up from his station. Sir, we're receiving casualty reports from the Helvik station battle. We lost 18 ships. The humans lost 3. They're using new tactics. They're not fighting honorably. They're ambushing our supply lines. They're attacking from behind asteroids. They're using electronic warfare to blind our sensors. They're doing things that aren't in any tactical manual. Because they don't follow manuals, Krith said. I've been studying their military philosophy. They have a saying. If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics are wrong. They don't believe in honor in combat. They believe in winning by any means necessary. Varkoth slammed his fist on the console. Then we'll match them. Deploy chemical weapons on their colony worlds. We'll show them that brutality works both ways. Sir, I would strongly advise against that. An older military advisor stepped forward. Remember the Geneva Conventions? Those protocols exist because humans used all of those weapons on themselves and decided they were too terrible to use again. If we use them, we give them permission to use them too. And they have centuries of experience with such warfare. We do not. Are you saying we should just surrender? I'm saying we should negotiate before this gets worse. Worse? How could it possibly get worse? The answer came 3 days later. The Zephlon colony world of Nexar 4 came under attack, but not from warships, from what appeared to be human marine forces. They'd bypassed the orbital defenses entirely, using small stealth craft to deploy directly to the surface. The reports from the surface were terrifying. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that seemed impossible. They moved through the Zephlon defensive positions like ghosts. They used tactics that made no tactical sense but achieved devastating results. They set traps. They disappeared and reappeared behind enemy lines. They seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. How are they doing this? Varkoth watched the tactical feeds in horror. Our troops outnumber them 10 to 1. A xenobiology expert provided the answer. Humans evolved from ambush predators, Commander. Their ancestors hunted in packs. They're biologically designed for this kind of warfare. They have something they call special forces. Soldiers trained specifically for operations behind enemy lines. They've been perfecting these tactics for thousands of years. Get them off our planet. We're trying, sir, but they're not holding territory. They strike military targets and disappear. We can't find them. Our sensors can't distinguish them from the civilian population. They're using our own people as cover. Sethrix reviewed the damage reports. They've destroyed 6 ammunition depots, 3 command centers, and disabled our planetary shield generator. All in one night. All with what appears to be less than 200 soldiers. A new report flashed on the screen. Human forces had captured Zephlon military personnel. But instead of executing them, they were treating them according to their Geneva Conventions, providing medical care, documenting them as prisoners of war, following rules even while conducting brutal military operations. This makes no sense, Varkoth said. They're vicious in combat but then treat prisoners with care. What kind of species does this? A species that understands the long game, Krith replied. They're showing the galaxy that they can be both brutal and civilized. They're demonstrating that they follow their own rules even when we don't. They're winning the propaganda war while winning the actual war. The communication console erupted with priority alerts. Commander, Multiple hegemony worlds are reporting sabotage. Power stations offline. Communications disrupted. Supply chains compromised. There are humans everywhere. That's impossible. Our intelligence would have detected infiltration. Sir, I have a report here from counterintelligence. They're finding evidence that humans have been gathering intelligence on our systems for decades. Long before this war started, they had agents in place. They had contingency plans. They were prepared for war with us before we even knew they existed as a threat. Varkoth felt something he'd never experienced in his long military career. Genuine fear. They planned for this? They were ready for someone to attack them? Commander, humans have a strategic doctrine called mutually assured destruction. They developed it during their own global conflicts. The principle is that they maintain the capability to destroy any enemy, even if that enemy strikes first. It's not just a military strategy. It's their entire civilization's philosophy. They're always prepared for war because they never stopped expecting it. New intelligence reports continued flooding in. Human technology was advancing at an unprecedented rate. They were reverse engineering captured Zeflon equipment and improving on it. They were developing new weapon systems weekly. Their scientists worked around the clock and their engineers found solutions to problems faster than those problems could be identified. They're adapting faster than we can plan, Sethric said. Every time we develop a new defensive strategy, they've already countered it. It's like fighting an enemy that can see the future. Not the future, Krith corrected. They're just thinking faster. Human brains are optimized for pattern recognition and problem solving. They evolved to outsmart their prey. Now they're outsmarting us. A junior officer burst into the command center. Sir, emergency transmission from the Hegemony Council. Our allies are officially withdrawing support. The Mordain Collective has issued a statement condemning our initial attack. The Vrexith are offering to mediate peace talks. The Altari Consortium is threatening sanctions if we don't negotiate. They're all cowards, Varkoth shouted. No, Commander, Krith said quietly. They're all survivors. They understand what we're only now learning. You don't fight humanity. You negotiate with them. You respect them. You make them your friends because making them your enemy is choosing death. The holographic display updated with new tactical information. Human forces were advancing on 3 fronts. Their fleets were winning engagement after engagement. Their marines were operating on 17 Zeflon worlds, and according to intelligence, they were still accelerating production. How do we stop this? Varkoth's voice was barely a whisper. We don't, Krith replied. We can only hope they're merciful when we surrender. 1 year after the destruction of the colony ship, the Zeflon hegemony was collapsing. The war had entered its final phase, though Supreme Commander Varkoth refused to acknowledge it. We still control 140 systems, he insisted during the Emergency War Council. We can mount a defense. We can still win this. Nobody in the room believed him. 60 systems had already surrendered to human forces, choosing to negotiate individually rather than die for a leadership that had led them into disaster. The remaining systems were isolated, their supply lines cut by human forces that seemed to be everywhere at once. Krith stood before the council, her report in hand. Commander, I need to be direct. We're not fighting a conventional war anymore. We're being hunted. Human special forces have infiltrated 43 of our remaining systems. They're not conquering. They're documenting. Documenting what? War crimes, sir. They have teams recording evidence of every violation of their Geneva Conventions. Every civilian casualty. Every prisoner mistreated. Every chemical weapon deployed. They're building legal cases against our leadership. They're planning trials. Varkoth laughed bitterly. Trials? They're killing us by the thousands and they want to put us on trial. Yes, sir. Because that's what humans do. They fight with absolute brutality, but then they apply law and justice. They're showing the galaxy that they can be both warrior and judge. It's terrifying. An intelligence officer added to the grim picture. Our agents have intercepted human military communications. They're tracking every ship, every officer, every unit that participated in the initial attack on their colony vessel. They have names. They have locations. They're not going to stop until they've found everyone responsible. This is madness. Wars don't work this way. You fight, you win or lose, and it's over. Human wars work this way, Krith replied. They have historical precedent. After their last global war, they held tribunals. They prosecuted leaders for war crimes. They established the principle that following orders isn't an excuse for atrocities. They're about to do the same to us. Sethrix reviewed tactical displays. Even if we wanted to continue fighting, we can't. Human fleets control all major trade routes. Their blockades are perfect. We're running out of resources. Our industrial worlds can't receive raw materials. Our military shipyards are offline, and their psychological warfare is destroying morale. What psychological warfare? They're broadcasting messages to our troops. Not threats, just facts. They tell our soldiers exactly what will happen if they continue fighting. They explain that surrender will result in treatment according to their laws. They provide evidence that prisoners are being treated well, and it's working. We're losing soldiers to mass surrenders every day. A communication officer interrupted. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Thex. He's commanding the defense fleet at Corvus Prime. He's asking permission to surrender his forces. Denied. Tell him to hold position and fight. Sir, he says the humans have surrounded his fleet. He's outnumbered 5-1. He says his ships are low on ammunition and fuel. He says continuing to fight would be murder of his crew for no strategic purpose. He's requesting permission to negotiate terms. Varkoth stared at the communication panel. 3 other fleet commanders had sent similar requests in the past week. The military was fracturing. Everyone could see the war was lost except him. The humans have made an offer. Krith said carefully. They'll accept system-by-system surrenders. Any world that capitulates will be treated according to their laws. Military forces will become prisoners of war. Civilian populations will be protected. They're offering reasonable terms. Reasonable? They're conquerors. No, sir. They're not. That's what makes this so unusual. Intercepted communications show that humans don't want our territory. They want justice for their dead. They want assurances that we'll never attack them again. But they don't want to rule us. They don't want our resources. They just want to make sure we understand the consequences of attacking them. A new alert flashed on the tactical display. Human Special Forces had located the Hegemony Council's emergency bunker on Zeflonis Prime. The entire leadership was trapped. How did they find us? This location was secret. Sir, humans have been tracking your communications for months. They've been monitoring every message, every transmission. They knew where you were the entire time. They were just waiting for the right moment to close the trap. Then why didn't they attack? Because they wanted you to watch the war end. They wanted you to see every system surrender. They wanted you to understand the complete scope of your failure. Now they're offering you a choice. Surrender and face trial, or die in a bunker while your empire dies around you. The command center fell silent. Varkoth looked at the faces of his officers. He saw defeat in every expression. He saw a year of death and failure written in their exhausted features. Show me the casualty reports, he said quietly. The real numbers? All of them. Krith pulled up the data. Zeflon military casualties, 400,000 dead, 600,000 wounded. Civilian casualties from human military operations, minimal. The humans have been careful to avoid civilian casualties, even when it puts their own troops at risk. Zeflon civilian casualties from our own defensive measures, substantial. We've lost more civilians to our own chemical weapons and scorched earth tactics than humans have killed. And human casualties? 70,000 military dead, 20,000 wounded. They publish their casualty lists publicly. Every name, every face. They honor their dead by remembering them, and every name on that list makes their civilians more determined to support the war. Varkoth pulled up images of human memorial services. They'd held ceremonies for every soldier killed. They'd created monuments. They'd told stories about the dead. They'd turned their casualties into martyrs and their war into a crusade. We never stood a chance, did we? Varkoth's voice was hollow. No, sir. The moment we killed their civilians, we guaranteed our defeat. Humans are willing to negotiate. They're willing to trade. They're willing to compromise on many things, but they will not tolerate attacks on their children. That's a line that once crossed cannot be uncrossed. A priority transmission came through. A human face appeared on screen. This one wore a military uniform decorated with symbols Varkoth had learned to recognize as marks of high rank and combat experience. Supreme Commander Varkoth, I am Fleet Admiral Chen, commanding the United Earth Federation forces in this sector. Your position is surrounded. Your empire is defeated. I'm transmitting surrender terms. You have 12 hours to respond. If you refuse, we will extract you by force. Either way, you will face justice for the 50,000 civilians you murdered. The only choice you have is whether more of your people die first. The transmission ended. Sethrix looked at Varkoth. Commander, we have to surrender. The war's over, we lost. Continuing to fight only kills more of our people for nothing. Varkoth stared at the tactical display. Red icons showing human forces surrounded blue icons, showing the last remnants of the hegemony military. The map looked like a closing fist. All commands, this is Supreme Commander Varkoth. His voice was tired, defeated. Cease all military operations. All forces are ordered to surrender to the nearest human commander. Negotiate the best terms you can for your crews. Protect the civilians. The war is over. He looked at Krith. You tried to warn us. From the very beginning, you tried to tell us what we were facing. Yes, sir. What will happen to us now? The humans will hold trials. They'll prosecute those responsible for war crimes. They'll be fair, but they'll be thorough. Some of us will spend the rest of our lives in prison, but the humans will treat us according to their laws. They'll give us legal representation. They'll allow us to defend ourselves. Even now, even after everything, they'll treat us with more dignity than we showed their civilians. Varkoth removed his commander's insignia and placed it on the console. Contact the humans. Tell them we surrender unconditionally. And tell them, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Tell them that the Zeflon hegemony acknowledges its crime and accepts their justice. The command center began the process of surrender. Officers contacted human forces, transmitted locations of military assets, and arranged for the peaceful transfer of authority. Krith watched human ships approach the bunker. Not weapons blazing, but with careful precision. They'd won the war, but they weren't celebrating. They were collecting evidence, documenting everything, preparing for the trials to come. They really are apex predators, she said to herself. They hunt with patience, they kill with precision, and they remember everything. We're so fortunate they're also capable of mercy. 5 years after the surrender, the galaxy had learned its lesson. The Zeflon War, as it came to be known, had changed everything. Krith stood in the hearing chamber on Earth waiting for her testimony. She'd been granted immunity in exchange for her cooperation with the human investigation. She'd spent 3 years providing evidence, explaining Zeflon military structure, and helping humans understand the decisions that led to the war. Now she watched as the final trials concluded. Varkoth sat in the defendant's chair, flanked by human guards who treated him with professional courtesy, despite what he'd done. The judges, a panel of 3 humans and 2 representatives from neutral species, reviewed the evidence. The lead judge spoke clearly. Former Supreme Commander Varkoth, you have been found guilty of crimes against sentient life, including the deliberate targeting of civilians, the murder of 50,000 human colonists, including 6,000 children, and the violation of established galactic norms regarding warfare. Before sentencing, do you have anything to say? Varkoth stood slowly. The past 5 years had aged him. I thought humans were weak. I thought your kindness was weakness. I thought your peace was cowardice. I was wrong about everything. I destroyed my people because I couldn't see what every other species in the galaxy already knew. You're not peaceful because you're weak. You're peaceful because you're strong. You choose restraint because you understand what happens when you don't. I have no excuse for what I did. I accept whatever judgment you impose. The judge nodded. You will serve 40 years in a human correctional facility. You will not be mistreated. You will be provided education, health care, and the opportunity for rehabilitation, but you will spend the rest of your life paying for the lives you took. Guards escorted Varkoth out. Krith watched him go, feeling something like pity. The humans had been ruthlessly fair throughout the trials. Every defendant received legal representation. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized. Some were found guilty, some were acquitted. The humans proved they could fight like predators but judge like civilized beings. In the plaza outside the courthouse, a memorial stood. 50,000 names carved in stone, 6,000 of them marked with small stars indicating children. Humans came daily to leave flowers, to read names, to remember. They'd won the war, but they never forgot why they fought it. Krith had interviewed dozens of species for her historical research. The patterns were clear. Every major galactic civilization had encountered humanity and made the same decision. Friendship, not confrontation. She pulled up her notes from an interview with Ambassador Vrex of the Mordain Collective. We met humans 40 years ago, Vrex had said. We saw their ships, which were less advanced than ours. We saw their worlds, which were fewer than ours. We could have dominated them. But our elders studied human history. They saw 10,000 years of warfare. They saw weapons that could destroy planets. They saw a species that had almost exterminated itself multiple times but always survived. And they said, these beings are dangerous. We will not provoke them. We will offer trade and friendship, and we will never give them a reason to view us as enemies. It was the wisest decision we ever made. The Altari had a similar story. Humans are strange, their ambassador had told her. They can be gentle and brutal in the same breath. We tested them once, seizing one of their cargo ships over a minor dispute. 7 human warships appeared at our border within days. 7 for one cargo ship. They didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They just waited. And we understood. They were showing us what would happen if we hurt their people. We returned the ship with compensation and apologies. Now we trade extensively with humanity. They're excellent partners. But we never forget those 7 warships. Krith had compiled all of this into a book. The Apex Species Understanding Humanity had become required reading in diplomatic schools across the galaxy. Her key conclusions were studied by every species that made contact with human space. She reviewed the final chapter one more time before publication. Humans are persistence, predators who evolved to hunt by outlasting their prey. They applied this same persistence to science, art, and civilization. They are capable of extreme violence but choose restraint. They value individual life but will sacrifice everything for their community. They forgive mistakes but never forget deliberate harm to their children. They create rules for warfare because without those rules, they are too terrible to themselves and others. Understanding humanity requires accepting a contradiction. They are both the most dangerous species in known space and the most diplomatic. They will negotiate fairly with anyone who approaches them honestly, but they will hunt to extinction anyone who attacks their innocent. The choice of which humanity you meet is entirely in your hands. A human approached her in the plaza. Admiral Chen, now retired, had become a friend over the years. She'd commanded the fleet that accepted the Zeflon surrender. Good morning, Krith. Thinking about the war? Always. I'm finalizing my book. I want to make sure everyone understands what happened here. Chen looked at the memorial. We didn't want this war. Every human death weighs on me. Every Zeflon death, too. War is waste. But we couldn't let the attack go unanswered. If we had, every species in the galaxy would have learned that killing human civilians has no consequences. You showed remarkable restraint considering. Other species would have glassed our worlds. We thought about it. In those first days after the colony ship was destroyed, there were voices calling for total retaliation. But cooler heads prevailed. We remembered our own history. We remembered what happened when we let rage drive our decisions. So we fought a careful war. We targeted military assets. We avoided civilian casualties when possible. We followed our own rules even when you didn't, because the galaxy was watching and we wanted to show that humans can be both strong and just. The Galactic Council wants to offer humanity a permanent seat, full membership with veto power. You'll be equals with the ancient species who've held power for thousands of years. Chen smiled slightly. We'll accept, not because we want power, but because we want a voice in preventing future conflicts. If humanity had been on the council, maybe we could have mediated before Varkoth made his decision. Maybe those 50,000 people would still be alive. A young Zeflon approached hesitantly. Excuse me, Admiral Chen. I'm studying human history at the university. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you show mercy? After everything we did, after all the humans who died, why didn't you destroy us completely? You had the power. Chen looked at the young student thoughtfully. Because that's not who we are. Yes, we fought hard. Yes, we won completely. But the goal was never extermination. The goal was justice and ensuring this never happens again. Your generation didn't start this war. Your generation will learn from it. That's enough. The student bowed respectfully and left. Chen watched her go. That's the future right there. A generation that will never make Varkoth's mistake. Krith agreed. The Zeflon schools now teach human history as a required subject. Young Zeflons are learning about the Geneva Conventions, about human military doctrine, about your capacity for both war and peace. Some are even applying to study at Earth universities, and we're accepting them. That's important. We want the galaxy to understand us, not fear us. They do fear you, Admiral, but it's a respectful fear. Every species now knows that humans prefer peace but are prepared for war. That you'll negotiate almost anything, but will never tolerate attacks on your civilians. That you fight by rules, but those rules allow for devastating effectiveness. The galaxy is safer because everyone understands this. Chen looked at the names on the memorial. 50,000 people died to teach that lesson. I wish there had been another way. There wasn't. Varkoth had to learn the hard way. But the lesson is learned now. I don't think anyone will make his mistake again. They stood in silence for a moment, remembering the dead, considering the future. What will you do now? Chen asked. Continue my research. I'm starting a new project studying other apex predator species. Humans aren't unique in your traits, but you're unique in how you've balanced them with civilization. I want to understand that balance better. And I'm going back to teaching. Military academy. I want to train the next generation of officers to fight as effectively as possible while holding on to their humanity. The goal is to be so good at war that we never have to fight one. Krith smiled at the paradox. That's very human. Being excellent at something while hoping you never have to use it. That's survival. That's evolution. That's what got us to the top of our food chain and then to the stars. Chen extended her hand for the human gesture of farewell. Good luck with your research, Krith. Tell the galaxy the truth about us. We're not monsters, but we're not helpless either. We're humans, and we'll be whatever we need to be to protect our own. Krith shook her hand, still marveling at the human custom of deliberate physical contact even with other species. The galaxy knows now. Thanks to you and thanks to Varkoth's mistake. Humanity's place in the galactic order is secure. You're respected, feared, and ultimately trusted. That's a rare combination. As Chen walked away, Krith added one final note to her book. The HFY War taught the galaxy a simple truth. You can negotiate with humanity. You can trade with humanity. You can become friends with humanity. But you can never successfully attack humanity. Choose wisely. The memorial plaza slowly filled with humans and aliens alike, all coming to pay respects to the dead, to remember the war, and to appreciate the peace that followed. The message was clear to everyone who visited. Humanity had become what every species eventually understood they were, the apex species not just of Earth, but of known space. Not because they wanted to be, but because when challenged, they proved they deserved to be.